All right, today we are diving into something truly massive. It's called CX Infinity, and it's being pitched as one of the most ambitious economic blueprints ever put together. We're not just talking about a new company here. This is a proposal for an entirely new way for the global economy to work. So let's really break down what's going on. Right from the get-go, the creators are setting the stage for something huge. This isn't about a new app or some single product. The vision, as you can see, is to build the very foundation, the infrastructure for how our entire world of finance, consumption, and tech will work together for, well, decades to come. That is a seriously bold claim.
So, how in the world do we get our heads around a concept this big? Well, here's the plan. First, we'll define what this thing actually is. Then, we'll look at the problems it's trying to solve. After that, we'll dissect its structure, check out the incredible value it promises, and finally, explore the absolutely audacious endgame.
Okay, first things first, what is CX Infinity? The most important thing to do right now is to stop thinking about it like a normal company. You have to start thinking of it as something, well, something alive.
The core idea they use is a living economic organism. And look, this isn't just some clever marketing buzzword. It's fundamental to how the whole thing is designed. The idea is to create a system where all these huge sectors, finance, energy, real estate, consumption, they all work together, kind of like organs in a body. It's all built on a blockchain, which means every transaction is transparent and secure, and it uses AI to manage the incredibly complex dance between all these different parts.
So you gotta ask, why build something this incredibly complex? Well, the whole project starts with a pretty harsh look at the massive problems that are plaguing our current global economy.
The creators point to 5 main flaws. First, our markets are totally fragmented. Finance, real estate, they all operate in their own little worlds. The separation makes everything slow, bureaucratic, and honestly, pretty shady. There's just a real lack of transparency. And all this leads to a massive problem. Most real-world assets, think about a skyscraper or a factory or a power plant, they're what we call illiquid. You can't just easily buy or sell a small piece of one.
But here's the thing. Solving that one problem, making those real-world assets liquid, represents an absolutely staggering opportunity. The World Economic Forum estimates that turning these physical assets into digital tokens that you can trade 24/7 could create a market worth 16 times trillion dollars by 2030. That is the massive prize that CX Infinity is chasing.
Okay, so we've got the what and the why. Now let's get into the really interesting part, the how. It's time to pop the hood on this economic organism and see what actually makes it tick. So the whole ecosystem is built on 14 different subsidiaries. And like we said, each one acts like a specialized organ. You've got a financial core with its own bank and exchange. Then you have divisions that deal with the real world, like real estate and essential goods like food and water. And then there's this deep infrastructure layer for everything from biotech to satellite communications. It's a lot.
So how does value actually flow through this thing? Well, it's designed to be a completely self-sustaining loop. First, capital comes in, it immediately gets tokenized, basically turned into digital assets on the blockchain so it can be moved around instantly and tracked. Then, those funds are put to work in real-world projects. And here's the really clever part. Every single thing the system does, whether it's building a house or delivering food, it generates digital carbon credits. This creates an environmental feedback loop that constantly adds measurable ESG value right back into the entire system.
Now that we have a feel for the mechanics, let's get to the part that for any investor is the most compelling, the financial promise. And let me tell you, it is a big one. The core financial promise here is all about exponential growth. According to their own blueprint, an investment in just one of the individual companies might get you a 4 or 5x return, which is great. But when that company is integrated into the bigger holding company, they project that network effects could rocket that up to a 20 or even 30x return. And the ultimate goal? A global IPO, where they're targeting an insane 80 to 100x return on that initial investment. So let's just put it side by side to make it crystal clear. The traditional model we live in now is siloed, it's linear, it's illiquid, and it's opaque. The model they're proposing is the exact opposite, a totally integrated ecosystem with exponential network effects, 24/7 liquidity through tokenization, and radical transparency because everything is on the blockchain. And the vision here goes way beyond just making investors rich. The proposed benefits are meant to ripple out. So companies get instant access to liquidity, governments theoretically get a much more transparent financial system they can actually audit. And for society as a whole, it could mean greater financial inclusion, letting everyday people invest in small fractions of big assets.
Okay, so how does this grand vision actually play out over time? And maybe more importantly, what are the massive, massive hurdles it has to clear to even have a chance of becoming a reality? Let's take a look at the endgame. This is not a quick flip. The roadmap is a decade-long construction project. It starts by building that financial core. Then it expands into the real-world sectors like food and housing. From there, it aims to build out its own core infrastructure, with the final target being a global IPO valued in the tens of billions of dollars. But, to their credit, the plan doesn't pretend this is easy. It openly acknowledges the immense challenges. We're talking about everything from market volatility and navigating a nightmare of global regulations to the sheer operational difficulty of running over a dozen interconnected companies, not to mention the huge reputational damage that hangs over this whole space from past crypto failures. So, how do they plan to deal with all that? The strategy is basically threefold. First, fight that distrust with radical transparency on the blockchain. Second, get ahead of the complex regulations by operating legally across several different countries at once. And third, build a self-sufficient tech stack that's incredibly resilient to attack. So, at the end of the day, we're left with this one big question. Is CX Infinity a genuine blueprint for the next phase of our global economy? A truly integrated, transparent, and efficient system? Or is it a vision that is just so audacious, so complex, that it's simply too vast to ever become a reality? That, right there, is the billion or maybe even trillion-dollar question.